Good evening and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm your host, Carla Coleman, Director of Communications for New Salem Baptist Church in Columbus, Ohio. And with me is my co host, Paige Reynolds. Say hello, Paige.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks all for joining us. Please jump in and give some love in the chat. Send a link to your friends and family so that they can all join in as well. Tonight, we are discussing our mental health and the journey of abuse, a place where many different, many people suffer in silence and alone. With us tonight is Maria Scott, author of the book Wanna Go, Wanna Stay, My Journey in a Season of Abuse. You can find her book on Amazon, which is where I found it. Yay! Or you can find it in any of our local bookstores. I have to say, I'm only a quarter of the way through it, but it's a page turner and it's an eye opener, especially if you have loved ones who you know are dealing with physical or emotional abuse. This discussion is for those who are experiencing abuse in real time or looking back on past experiences, or for those who know someone and are just not sure what to do for them. So, Maria, I'm going to turn this over to you. Welcome. Glad to have you on the show and
Thank you.
ask you to
Good to
tell
be
us
here.
a little bit about yourself and about your story and journey.
All right. I was born here in Columbus, raised here. My father was the pastor of the Corinthian Baptist Church, so I'm a PK. I went away from Columbus just a couple of times to do other things, and that's where that's where this story is taking place at one of those events. To tell you my story, it starts in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to Fisk University, and my roommate was from Atlanta. And sometimes I go home with her to for the holidays, for the special days, and I really enjoyed Atlanta. I thought it was a great place. People were doing so well there. It had gorgeous homes. The social life was just great. And I said, this is where I want to live when I graduate from college. So I did. After I graduated from college, I saved my money, moved to Atlanta. I was raring to go. What I forgot was that even though I had fun with my roommate and her friends, they all got married in the interim. So when I moved to Atlanta, I was basically alone. Didn't have any friends, anyone to hang out with, no network, no social life. And I thought when I got a job, there would be people there I could hang out with. But I was in the IT field, and at that time, there weren't that many people in IT who were of my race. So the men that were there, because it was mostly a male-dominated field at that time, the black men were mostly married, and I just didn't have anyone to hang with. So for months on end, I was pretty lonely. I thought this is not the Atlanta I had planned to come to. And at some point, I met a young man who was very interesting. He knew a lot of people in Atlanta. He was going a lot of places, and he would take me with him. So all of a sudden, my very dull existence became very adventurous. We had a lot of things to do, and I was enjoying it. We dated for a year, and about the end of that year, he started having jealous tendencies, which he didn't have before. So I was shocked by that, but I was willing to put up with it because I enjoyed him. I actually fell in love with him, and the jealousy was okay, I thought, until one day he slapped me. And it was a light slap, but it was not acceptable in my sight. And I was really surprised because I didn't expect that from him. He was one of those kind of men that your parents would see and expect you to marry because he wore a suit and tie every day. He was very neat, well groomed, and I didn't expect this from him. He quickly apologized, but it was a month later when he slapped me again. And this one was hard. It left a mark on my face for several days. As a matter of fact, that's why I named him Mark in the book, because he left a mark on my life. Anyhow, when this one happened, I was furious. I told him we would not be together anymore, that he could quit calling me. And he continued to call. He continued to beg me to not break up. At one point, I said, well, I'm going to call the pastor of the church we've been attending because I don't understand this. I don't know why people would do this. This is confusing to me. So I met with the pastor. The pastor happened to be a woman, and she convinced me to marry Mark. She said if I married him, the jealousy would be gone. So we got married, and things were okay for a while. There was still some jealousy, but there was no hitting. And I think about 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks later on, I did find myself being pinned to the bed by him. He was on top of me and choking me. And that's when I knew this is definitely not going to work. I've got to get away from him. And I've got to sneak out because it would be a fight if he knew I was leaving. So I did get away. It was a very scary episode, extremely scary, but I got away. I had no place to go. So I went back to Columbus, Ohio. You would think after going through a scary episode that you would not ever go back to that person, but I went back. He called and begged and pleaded, and I kept saying no, no, no. And then at some point I said, well, you really need to get help. You need counseling. He didn't want to hear that, but nobody ever wants to hear that they need counseling. So he continued to call, and I continued to say no. And then at some point he said, I will get counseling. I will do that. If we can get back together, I will do anything to get us back together again. So I started thinking about it because I still love the man. I started thinking about the fact that if he was willing to get counseling, maybe we could make it. I could go back and we could make it. So I did go back, and we were doing okay for a while. What he didn't tell me while I was still in Columbus was that he had lost his job while I was in Columbus. So when I went back, I had quit my job already. So he didn't have a job, I didn't have a job. We needed some money, especially in light of all those telephone bills he had racked up by calling me so often. So I got a job. I got a job offer, let me say that. And he saw the man who interviewed me. He didn't like the way he looked. He didn't like the way he looked at me. So he sabotaged the job offer. I never got to do that work. We went on for a few more weeks, being okay, and then all of a sudden, explosion. It was a savage beating that he gave me when he just exploded. And it was by the grace of God, a miracle. It was really a miracle that I got away from him again. I went back to Columbus. I was facing some difficulties. I had a possible set of deformities. I had possible disfigurement. I had possible disabilities. I had to go into the hospital to get surgery. And again, I was blessed by God. I often say, who am I that God should bless me? But he blessed me so that none of those deformities ever happened. I did come away with one disability, which I still have to this very day. I'll always have it all the rest of my life. But there was more good things on the way for me. I eventually met and married a wonderful man. He had not a jealous bone in his body. He was very supportive. He was God-fearing. He was fun-loving, everything you could want in a husband. We were married. We raised 3 kids, and we were married for 31 years almost. He passed away before our 31st anniversary. So there is light on the other side of abuse if you're willing to take the right steps. A lot of times people think that the only ones who have domestic violence in their life are people who are low class, poor. The man wears what do they call that, white beater shirt. You don't realize that this extends across all races, all all classes of people, all social economic groups. It extends across all religions, all cultures. The statistics say that 1 out of every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. They also say that 1 out of every 7 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. We don't talk about the men that often, and I won't usually refer to men because I know about the statistics for women, but I can just imagine how it would be for a man to admit that his wife or significant other had been abusing him. This does happen. To put it in a larger context, if you had an imaginary church where there were 1,000 women, and 1 in 4 women have been through this, in that imaginary church, 250 of those 1,000 women would have experienced domestic violence. If that church
That's
also had 7 men in it, and using this same statistic of 1 in 7 men, that means that 100 of those men would have experienced domestic violence. You hear about it with celebrities. You've heard about Carrie, Rihanna, Meredith Vieira, Halle Berry. There's a lot of people who have experienced, so it's not relegated to any one group of people. One of the things we don't really think about is the fact that it's a deadly thing. There are, on average, 3 women who die each day from domestic violence. So it is something that we need to do something about, but we don't often do it. People sometimes ask, how can a person get out? And the first thing we have to realize is the person has to be ready to get out. You may wonder, why wouldn't a person want out of that? And there are a lot of reasons. The statistics say
Maria?
that. Yes.
Maria, you have a presentation to share with us, and I don't want you to get too deep into statistics and all before, but I do want to thank you because I know it's not easy talking about your experience, and it's not
Yes.
easy, sharing, those what most consider very private things that have happened to you, no matter how traumatic and dangerous it really was.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to start with some of the slides you want to share with us, and so we can continue your conversation.
Okay. I think the first
Uh-oh.
why women are staying in these relationships.
You want to go to the next slide?
Yes. Okay. Uh, these are some of the reasons. These are not the only reasons, and they're not organized in terms of priority. But the first one on our list is fear. And this is a very valid reason to be afraid to leave. When you leave, it's one of the most dangerous times of the whole relationship because the person realizes they are losing control and they will do practically anything they can to keep that control. So fear is one reason why women don't leave. Another is shame, the second one on the list. Shame because how did I get into this situation? How will I explain this to anybody? And what kind of person am I to have had this to happen to me? So shame is another reason. The third one is they think they can help the person stop. Black women are very good at wanting to help our men over any kind of humps that they encounter. And so we would look at this as being another hump. We want to be able to help him to stop, to do this for him. Another reason is financial dependency, which means that maybe he's the only one that has a job. If you leave, how will you manage? What can you do to bring in money for yourself? A fifth reason is because of the children. We all want our children to grow up with their fathers, to live in a two-parent home, and we think if we leave, this is not possible. Another reason is isolation. Abusers regularly will isolate their victims. They will do this slowly over time. They'll have reasons why you shouldn't be with a certain friend, or why you shouldn't go over their house, or why you shouldn't be with your family. He or she will do everything they can to isolate you. So here you are isolated, and if you leave, where are you going? And the last one I have on the list is beliefs. It may be cultural beliefs, it may be religious beliefs, but we think we need to stay because of those beliefs, that we shouldn't leave our spouse. Next slide. Okay, this is for friends. If you have a friend who is being abused, and you want to do everything you can to get them out. One of the things that we say a lot nowadays is a true friend is the one who will tell you what you don't want to hear. And that's not what you need to do in this case, because the person who's being abused is already hearing things they don't want to hear from their abuser. So what you need to do is get your friend off to the side, away from the abuser. Tell them in a nice, calm way that you are worried about them. Let them know you are coming to them as a friend. Ask them, number two, ask them what they would like to see happen. They've been told what's going to happen in their life, so they don't want you telling them. They want you to sympathize with them. And when you ask them, they will probably say, I want to stay with the unjealous version of this person. And that's not something you want to hear, but go along with them. Ask them, how do they see that happening? How can they get back to that person? How can they get that person back to what they used to be? Have them think through the process. If they think through it enough, they'll see it's not going to work, but just be with them and ask them about that. Offer to call an advocacy program for them. We have some numbers for advocacy programs. These programs will not judge them. They will not tell them they should leave. They will listen to them. They will help them come up with a way to be safe, as safe as possible when the abuse starts. Or if they think that at some point in the future they might leave, these programs will help them come up with a safety plan so that when they leave, they don't leave like I did the first time, which is I had nothing but the clothes on my back. Number four, as a friend, let them know that the abuse is not their fault, because they are thinking, maybe I should have done something different. It's not their fault. Be sure to tell them that. And five, be there to support them no matter what they decide. That's hard, because you're going to want them to decide to leave, but be there to support them. Let them know they always have somebody they can talk to, somebody who will listen to them. Pray for them is number six. It's going to sound impossible what's going on. It's going to sound impossible that they'll ever get back to the person that they used to love or they originally fell in love with, but pray for them. Pray for everything that seems impossible in that situation. As you see in my story, there is a brilliant light on the other side. The last one is don't give up on them, no matter how many times they go back. Don't give up on them. There's still hope. So that's basically it for what a friend can do. I think I had a slide on the telephone numbers to call. Yeah. Locally in Columbus, Ohio, there's Choices for Women, which is run by Lutheran Social Services. They have a number that I have memorized and I give out to people from time to time. When you make that decision, I tell them 614-224-HOME. Home. That's an easy number to remember. Again, they are staffed every day, all day long, so you can call them. They're not trying to get you to go anywhere. They just want to be there for you. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is another one that's good. There's a lot of information there. I mean, even if you don't want to call them, just go look at the websites. They just have so much information that will enlighten you. And the third one is, excuse me, if you need a shelter for your situation, you can look at the domesticshelters.org and they will tell you what's in your city. I want to also point out that men can call these numbers as well. I don't know of a shelter for men, but you can call if you just want someone to talk to. If you just want some advice, or you just want to know how to do a safety plan or whatever, you can call us. Well, okay, I think that's all I had for my presentation. I can't hear you. I'm going to turn you up.
I'm on mute. It never fails.
Okay. Okay.
So there was a few statistics there, but I think you shared them earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, hey, do we have any questions in the chat yet?
Not yet, Carla. So for
Okay.
everyone viewing, you can drop your questions in the chat and we'll get them answered.
Great. So you were saying earlier, Maria, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. You were saying earlier that, it doesn't matter what your social economic background is. This can happen to
Yes.
just about any woman or man. And a lot of times we don't think about the men as well, but this could happen to just about anyone. And can you go over some of the different types of abuse? So it's not just physical. It could be mental and financial.
That's true. That's true. You can be abused and no one puts their hands on you. The physical what I usually talk about, because that's what I experience, and that's what we always think about with domestic violence. But there is
Mhm.
financial abuse where he won't let you or she won't let you have access to any money. You can't have a bank account. You can't work a job. You just barefoot and pregnant, basically. And there's also emotional abuse. Um, this is one that you may not recognize, and I think we have a slide on that one as well, so we can talk about some of the signs of emotional abuse. There are more signs than this, but if you could show that.
There we go.
This is where the person makes you the butt of his or her jokes. Um, nobody wants to be embarrassed or made fun of, and especially in public. So if a person does that to you, that's one sign of emotional abuse. They criticize your actions, feelings, or opinions. Um, they're basically telling you you're dumb, you have no smarts. So that's another sign. Anytime they disrespect you, if that continues, that is another sign of emotional abuse. They downplay your accomplishments. They also believe that your responsibility is to do what they tell you to do, just like a child, not a partner. And when they make promises to you, they don't follow through on their promises to you. It's amazing. I was looking at this and I said, "Wow, I've had some of these in that physical abuse situation. I've had some of these things that happen to me. Didn't realize, in addition to getting physically abused, I was also getting emotionally abused."
So it was a combination. And that's the thing, sometimes we don't, if someone doesn't physically hurt you, you don't realize that there are other ways that they can be abusing you.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about in the book was just being single and alone in the city. And it's really difficult. Many of us are transplants. We don't live in the city where our family and friends are. We move away. We're somewhere that, we don't know anyone. And it really puts you in a position where, how much of that can you handle? What would you recommend for men and women who are maybe away from their network of friends and family? How to manage that?
Many things that I could have done now that I'm looking back at it. One is that I always have been involved in church. And I did the classic thing that most people do when they have to find a new church, when they move to another city. The thing I was doing was looking for another church exactly like my church. You're not going to find another church exactly like your church. You just have to find another church that you enjoy going to, that teaches the word of God, that is meeting your needs as a Christian. So I think if I had found the church, if I kept looking, because eventually I quit going to church until I met Mark. I quit going to church. I just didn't feel right. I didn't know anybody. And when I had been in my church, I knew everybody. So that's one of the things. I was also in a sorority. I could have started being active in my sorority there. I didn't do that. At home in Columbus, I had been taking classes, um, I don't remember who was offering the classes, but I'd taken various classes, gourmet cooking, golfing, things of that nature. I could have done those things as well. So there were opportunities open. There are always opportunities open, and you can take advantage of anything that is of interest to you. Just go do that. Libraries have programs. There's all kinds of things in every city you can do. So even though you don't have friends, that's how you make friends. You get involved in things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's as a friend of someone who may you noticed maybe you're not sure, but you may be being abused or whatever. Can you talk again about what you can do, because that's a tough thing. I mean, when you how do you approach them? How do you actually help them? I mean, it's tough to know that they're going to go back like you did, and so a couple of times. A lot of people do that. That is not unusual. I think all of us has seen that before.
Yeah, it is a tough thing. You have to be ready for that as a friend, to know that they will probably disappoint you in that area. But because you are their friend, you are going to stick with them all the way through. You're going to do everything that you can to make sure they are not isolated from you. That their only hope is not that man or that woman or whoever it is. You're going to be their kind of protector, because you're going to be there with them. It is hard to make that first step. It's very hard. I haven't had to do that for domestic violence yet. I have seen some people that I knew, but not well, and I just had to say something. So I did go up to them and say, I noticed that you have a bruise, and I wanted to talk to you because I've been in that situation too, where I was in a domestic violence relationship, and I know what it's like. And if you ever want to talk to somebody, I'm here, I'm available to talk to. But if you don't, I want to give you a phone number that you can call whenever you feel like it. And I tell them that these people on the other side of the phone will not try to convince them to leave. I tell them that they are just there to talk, but I am also available to talk. And in this one case, I saw the person repeatedly. So the next few times, she didn't say anything to me about it. But finally, at one point, she said, I'm just about ready to leave. And I said, okay, remember the number? I said, do you want to talk about it? What do you want to do? She said, no, I'm not ready to talk about it, but I do remember the number, and I think I'm going to leave. So eventually she did leave that person. And I saw her, and she was trying to get her life together, trying. She didn't have, I don't think she had any income any kind of way, but she was trying to get it all together and making that break from that person.
Hmm. Sometimes I think you mentioned this earlier, that the people they rationalize, and they think that I have children, I can't just leave, or we can't just leave and break up the family. That's a tough decision to make as well. But also, if your children is witnessing that, how healthy is that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I used to try to tell people, that, is this something you want your son to do? Is this something you want your daughter to grow up and think that's okay? I say you have to think about those things when you think about your children. But again, it's a lot harder, I believe, to leave with children because now you've got children who may be crying as you're leaving. They may be wanting, if you tell them in advance, they may be wanting to tell their father what's going on. And also, when I talked about, well, I don't think I mentioned this, but there is a safety plan that you need to think about if you ever want to leave. You may not be planning to leave, but you need to be thinking about a safety plan. You need to have an extra set of clothes someplace, and that's where a friend can come in. You need to have copies of passports or insurance, driver's license, other things that you may need while you're out on your own. And when you have children, you need extra clothing for them, extra diapers, whatever you need. You need to get all that set up and put somewhere so that you can leave. You need some extra money, some kind of way. If you're not being financially, withheld by him, then you need to find a way to get some extra money because you're going to need so many things. I mean, it was just hard to go away with nothing. And if you do a safety plan, you don't have to just go away with nothing. You can have a little something to help you along your way.
Yeah, that actually.
Oh, you have something in the chat there?
No, I was just going to say, we were just talking about, that was a question that someone had just asked. What happens to the women with children? Will their children have to go to foster care or taken from them for the time being?
Oh, no, unless the mother is unfit, she's going to be able to keep her children, as far as I know, because I've been in the local shelter for women, and there are children there. They take the mother and the children, so you don't have to give up your children. You'll be fine. You just want to make sure they're provided for and they have all the things they need. And the local shelter choices, they do take donations. Anything you want to give, they will not tell you where that shelter is, and I can understand that because you don't want the man showing up at the shelter creating a scene. So they won't tell you where it is, but you can go to let's see, where is it? Faith Mission downtown. You can go there and tell them that you're leaving something for the women in choices. For instance, my care group decided we wanted to do something for them, and we called and asked what they needed, and they said, well, we needed African American hair products. That's a definite need. So we got a bunch of those together and several bags and took them down to them. Oh, I think you're on mute again,
You're on mute,
Carla.
Carla.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again. So that's something that anyone can do, any individual. I have a lot of background noise, so I'm trying to manage this tonight. So yeah, that's something that anyone can do. Do we have any questions yet or comments?
Yeah, so another question is, Maria, what would you say to a young woman struggling right now?
Struggling with domestic violence right now?
Assuming.
I would say get you a friend, a friend who you can turn to if you have to leave quickly. And it's better if the person doesn't know that friend, because if they do know the friend, they're going to come and try to get you to come back. Like I said, most women who are struggling with that, that's why my book is called Want to Go, Want to Stay. You want to go. That was always my first inclination, was to go, but you will pull back because you love that person. You were hoping that person would change back to what they had been. So for the woman who's struggling, I understand the struggle. I definitely understand the struggle, but I would say talk to the people either Choices or the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Talk to them about how you're feeling right now. Listen to what they might offer, because like I said, there'll be a safety plan. How can you stay safe if you stay there? How can you have a code word to let your family know if they call that things aren't going well and I need some help? You know, there are other things that you may not think about. So please be sure to call one of those numbers. I think if we don't have the slide up again, the 800 number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline was 800-799. So be sure to call one of those, talk to them. Even if you don't want to leave, just call. Just be ready to call. And like I said, try not to be so isolated, because that person's trying to isolate you. Keep in touch with as many people as you can. Let them know you're having some issues right now, but you still love them, and ask them not to forget about you.
Excellent. You know, the other thing is that sometimes with family and friends, you know, not everyone is going to be supportive.
That's true.
They're not. Yeah, that's a tough
That is
thing
true.
to realize.
Yeah, they want you to get away. So they're not supportive of you staying there, and they think they're really going to be down on you for staying. You know, so that's why you need a friend, at least one friend who's not going to judge you, and that's why I offer those numbers, because they are not going to judge you. They understand the pull and push, and they will be there to talk to you no matter what. So yeah, family is going to say, what in the world is wrong with you? And they want you to leave. And it's because they love you. You know, it's not because they hate you. It's because they love you. But they just don't understand. You're tied to that person in more ways than just love. You're just tied to that person. So it's not an easy move to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything else in the chat page?
Yeah. So with that, Maria, with your story, someone asked, did your friends believe you at first?
Did my friends believe?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's interesting because some of my friends met him. When you live in Atlanta, everybody wants to come to Atlanta to visit. So I had quite a few visitors, and they had met him. Like I said, he was a very nice person uh, to um, to the people that he wasn't interested in terms of a love relationship. So they were shocked. They were totally shocked that that's the way he acted. As a matter of fact, the last time I left, he had his mother call me and try to convince me to come back. He had one of his friends call me and try to convince me to come back. And as I was talking to this friend, I said, "Do you know what he did?" And I told her everything he did, and how I was impacted and the disability I had. And she said, "Oh, no." She said, "No, no, don't go back to him." She said, "And I will tell him the next time I see him that was totally wrong." She said, "No, don't, you stay where you are." So, um, people did believe me in spite of the fact that he seemed like a very nice person.
Yeah, that can be tough. So, another question we had is, are you able to recognize signs in other women?
The signs that I see are usually the ones where they have a bruise on their face. Um, it's very seldom that people really do walk into a door. Usually, if there's a bruise on the face, it's because of some altercation. It's heartbreaking when you see that. I saw that in a waitress for a place that I used to go to quite frequently, and I didn't really know her, and I so much wanted to say something to her.
Mm-hmm.
It, because you just hate to think that people are going through that. You know what it's like. You don't want people to go through that. So yeah, usually the sign is a bruise, and it can be more than one bruise. Um, when he gave me that slap that was on my face for several days, I stayed off work 2.5 days trying to will that mark away from my face, but it wouldn't go away. And when I went back to work, my boss said, "Is that a bruise on your face?" And I said, "Yes." And I went on talking about something else, and I didn't go into detail. But that's an opening, you know, if you can get the person to say yes, and to understand, and to say something like, "Yeah, I'm having problems in my marriage," or whatever. But most people won't do that. As you see, I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's understandable. So in your opinion, does it begin with emotional abuse, or does physical abuse just come randomly? Like, are there things that come before the physical abuse starts?
I would say it's emotional first, because I was getting accused of things that he had in his mind that I might be doing with somebody else, and that can wear on you for a while. Like I said, I was willing to put up with it, but I'm sure if we went through that for a year, it would wear on me. So yeah, I think it does start with emotional abuse. The isolation started before he actually did any physical things to me. But you know, he would say, "Well, that person, uh, they're dating a married man. Why would you want to talk to that person?" Or, you know, "Why are you calling so and so on the phone?" So yeah, there are things that occur before the physical abuse starts. And my hope would be that people would recognize it. If you have somebody who's getting angry with you about something that never happened, that's emotional abuse. You should be on the lookout for more problems, because that, you know, getting angry about something that really happened is one thing, but getting angry because you imagine stuff, that'll wear on you. That will wear on you. There's nothing you can do to fix that problem.
Yeah, for sure. So you happily and luckily got out of it, and you were able to remarry and have a great marriage after that. But when you did remarry, were there things that you had to not carry on into the next marriage, or things that just like triggered you from before? How did you get over that or get past that?
Yeah, I wish my husband was still alive to tell folks what things I might have done that he had to put up with. He was a very understanding man, very easy to get along with. So I'm sure there's probably something I did that was strange, but I don't know what it was. A lot of times people will ask me if I had trouble making the starting to date again, and I really didn't. I had a lot of things going on in my family. There were a lot of troubles, and uh, people dying, people getting sick. There were a lot of things going on in my family. So I had to deal with all those things first before I got around to dating. But I'm sure he knew very early on that I had been in an abusive relationship, and I'm sure he was just being very careful not to and not to make it any worse for me than it already was.
But you found that you could heal.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I used that I feel sorry for my first husband because he was never going to have a happy relationship. I knew I could move on and find a happy relationship. I didn't have that problem that he had. So yeah, I told him. I said, "I feel sorry for you." But yeah, I healed very early on. Didn't look behind me. As a matter of fact, we had 3 kids, and they didn't even know that I had been married before until they were, I think the oldest was around 16 and the youngest was around 9. They were not aware that that ever happened. And that's an interesting conversation we sometimes have about how they found out. It wasn't anything we hid, but they say, "You never told us, so you were hiding it." It's like, no, we weren't hiding. It was just we were busy going on with life. We didn't have time to even talk about that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's wonderful. I mean, for someone to go through such a traumatic experience, sometimes you get stuck,
Oh,
even
yeah.
though you might have decided to leave and you're still stuck mentally. How do you
Yes.
do that? How do you move on?
Yeah, well, that's something I think my parents instilled in me. You got to keep moving. Life is going to knock you down a whole bunch of times, and you got to always get up, brush yourself off, and keep pushing on forward. You just can't stay where you are. So I think that helped me in this situation as well. It's like, okay, that happened. That was awful. I'll never forget that. But there's other things to do in life.
And then sometimes, a person may even think to themselves, a lot of this, I brought it on myself, that it was my fault.
Hmm. Yeah, I knew better. I knew better.
Yeah.
There was nothing I had done for any of those accusations. I knew better, so I wasn't thinking that. But I can see where somebody would think, yeah, I just brought this on myself, and um, shake that off. Shake that off. Whatever you may have done, it doesn't deserve being abused like that. It doesn't deserve any kind of abuse. So shake that off. No, you don't. Move on.
Any other questions in the chat page?
Yeah, we got a question, Maria. So, would you be willing to mentor women through survival?
Yes, I'd be willing to do that. Yeah, I'd definitely be willing to do that. I think it's easier when you have been through it yourself. I think it's easier to trust somebody who's been through it themselves. I think it's easier to understand what people are going through when you have been through it yourself. You don't want anybody else to have to go through that pain. You want them to get to the light on the other side, the brilliant light that's waiting there for them. You really want that for somebody. So yeah, I think anybody who's been through that is willing to mentor and to assist however we can.
Could you just remind everyone again how they can get your book?
Oh, it is available on Amazon, ebook and paperback. It's also available at Barnes and Noble and any other bookstore that you may go to. They probably won't have it on their shelf because it's not a bestseller, but they can order it for you and try to keep the price reasonable so that no matter what was going on in somebody's life, they still be able to afford it. So yeah, any bookstore you want to, online or what they call it. Um,
Kindle,
Yeah.
you can use your Kindle. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it was
yeah.
only
Just trying to,
Kindle. So that
oh,
was really
really?
cool. And
Okay,
yeah, and then
okay.
11 bucks paperback. So you're absolutely right. It was very affordable. Very
Yeah,
affordable. Yeah. And it's a great, and
yeah.
I was telling Maria before, what a great read and just so well written. I just so, I mean, this very descriptive, I have to say, so I was captivated from the beginning. So very nice work, Maria, on your book.
Thank you. I have never written a book before, didn't have a clue, but God sent me the resources to understand how to write a book, to understand some needed things.
Mhm.
That's another journey, writing a book and doing all the things needed to make that book come to fruition. But it was interesting. It was very interesting.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
the
for sure.
journey of being able to tell your story. I mean, that's the hard part. I mean, that's a very private thing that happened. It's something that, like you said, your children didn't even know until later. I mean, just being able to share that with the world. I really commend you on that.
I had no intention to ever write that book. No intention.
Mm, mm,
I always thought I'd write a book, but I was going to write some historical novel like Roots or something like that. And then I found out
okay.
I don't really have an imagination. I write, everything I write is about things that really happen. And I've written a lot, but it's always about things that really happen. So I was not planning to write that book. That was God all the way because I didn't want to expose
Mhm,
myself. I wanted you to think of me as being this nice, quiet person, just bounds at people, never been in trouble. So
mhm,
so that was a major thing just to get me to write that book. Wow.
right, right, to pour that out. I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's a tough one to tell, and God, thank you for having the strength, giving you the strength to do that, because there's a lot of people out there that need to hear your story. Not only, they need to hear who you were before the
Mhm.
abuse, what was going through your mind during, and then how you were able to heal and move on. Need to
Yes.
hear that whole story is so important. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. To keep, you just don't want to get stuck. There's so many people out there that need that inspiration. Yep.
Right. Right. And I want to say that I think that book shortened my life because every time I had to reread the story, uh, I felt
Mm,
the same pain, the same everything.
mm.
To reread the
Oh,
story.
wow.
And when you're writing a book, you reread many, many times because,
Right.
first of all, you gotten everything right. I wrote the book 14 different ways, and
Mm,
so I read it to make sure I got everything in line, that I didn't leave anything out that was
mm,
important to the
mhm,
rest of the
mhm,
story. When you send the book in to have it edited, you have to reread it because you add things. There were so many
mhm,
times I had to reread that story, and I think that was
mhm.
harder
Right.
the first time.
I can imagine. I mean, mentally, hey, you had pushed it back, and now you're
Yeah,
bringing it all forward and pouring it
right,
and having to read it over and over again. That is, yeah,
right.
like I
Yeah,
said, we really appreciate you giving that to the world, to the rest of the world.
yeah,
Any other
yeah.
questions, Paige?
Yeah, Maria. So you mentioned that you didn't have an intention on writing that kind of book. So what motivated you or pushed you to actually do it?
Oh, now I'm going to tell on myself. I had this desire for years to write a book. When I retire, I always say, when I retire, I'll have time. I'll write the book. And I retired and I started working on, okay, which book am I going to write? I thought it'd be about one of my ancestors because I'm a genealogy nut and I had found
Okay.
some stories. But when you write historical novels, you have to have a plot. And I don't have that kind of imagination to create a plot. Like I said, I write about things that really happen. I can't make up anything. So I was kind of disappointed. It's like, oh Lord, I'm not going to be able to write a book because I don't really write novels. And then I remember, well, you've been writing things for years and years. You've been writing little short stories, and why can't you do something like what you did there? And I said, okay, it's always been about stuff that really happened to me. And then I said, oh Lord, you're not telling me to write about that. Not about, no, not about that. And it seemed like he was saying, yeah, that's a good story. I was like, no. So that's really how we got to that point. I didn't want to write that, but I wanted to write a book. So
Yeah.
I knew it was a very interesting story. I wasn't trying to save the world at that time. But since then, I've been called to say as much as I can about the situation of domestic violence, to learn more about it, and to see that my story was not that unique, and my parents really had the right thing in mind when they were not judging me and not telling me, you just stay here. They didn't do that. So I don't think they knew that back then as much as people know now, but they they did the right thing in terms of working with me, always being there for me when I was ready to leave. So I told on myself now.
Definitely. That's amazing though. So through writing the book, did you find that it gave you even more closure and helped you heal through that? Or did it ignite more feelings about it?
It definitely ignited more feelings. I had moved on. I was past that, so past that. Um, so it caused me to relive that, to remember the pain, to think about all the people who were still in pain. I mean, all those years I hadn't really thought about all the people that were in pain. I mean, if I ran across somebody in my church or wherever, I would talk to them one on one about the situation, some of the things I knew, some of the side effects I knew that you have from domestic violence. And I tried to reassure them they're going to be okay. But I wasn't on a big effort to do that. I just wanted to do it one on one.
Hmm.
That's the person I am. Didn't want to come out front.
Yeah, definitely. But that's amazing. That's good you're able to share your story and you've touched and helped a lot of women and men potentially. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think Carla's having a little bit of technical issues, but as we wrap up like the end of the hour, Maria, I want to say thank you again, but could you just kind of give a little closing and wrap up
Okay.
your story and what we talked about?
Yeah, I want to wrap up this way. I think that I know for sure that God moves. He plans things in advance, and He had been working on me recently to do more about the book. And I was saying, no, I'm not, self promoter. And the fact that I got this invitation to speak for this particular time, I said, that's more of you, God. You have somebody out there you want to reach, and so I don't know if it's a person who is about to date someone else and then find out a year from now that that person is abusive. Um, but I want to warn young ladies, young men that, you invest time in someone, you may have to cut them loose if you find out that they are like this. So be willing if that happens to make the cut, because your life is important to God. He wants you to thrive. He wants you to survive. He wants you to enjoy everything that He designed you for. So you may just be a friend and you have someone that you've been trying to figure out what to do, and maybe you started the wrong way. Maybe you started by saying, "Oh, you got to leave him. You got to leave her." Now you know that that's not the approach, and God wants you to be there for that person so that they can have uh, a friend to lean on. They can have a listening ear. So I know that this is no accident. This is for somebody. All this work, all the people behind the scenes, all the people who came up with the concept of Wellness Wednesday, people who are working to make it happen every week. This is not an accident. This is for you, whoever you are. So take God's hand. He's ready for you. He's working in your behalf already. So go ahead and accept His plan.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. I think Carla, are you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that. Having technical difficulties today.
No problem.
Oh, thank you for taking on there, picking the baton up, Paige. And thank you, Marie, for being here with us. We really, really appreciate you sharing with us your story. Hopefully, I know you have inspired many, at least even some of us who may not be um, physically abused, thinking of the other abuses as well, and how we need to look at what changes we might need to make in our own lives. So, and then in general, our mental health, just how we view ourselves, and remember that we're super special and that we can't let anyone else take that away from us. We are God's creation and we are His, and so we need to be able to remember that we're special and we need to be treated that way at all times. So
Amen. Amen.
thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you
everyone
all.
for
I really
joining us.
appreciate your help.
Great. Thank you for being with us, Maria. Hopefully you can come
Thank
back
you.
again. I'm going to finish up your book because it is so awesome. So,
Okay.
and I'll probably send you a note after I finish reading and crying. So thank
Please
you
do, please
again.
do. And share it. If you know somebody else that needs to know the story, please feel free to share it. Yeah.
Oh, good point. Absolutely will. Absolutely will. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again for Wellness Wednesday. Please have a wonderful remainder of your week. Stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.